in this lesson, we will be talking about congruence in regular polygons. When polygons match exactly, the polygons are called congruent. So congruent is another way that we can say that they are the same. It's a little bit more specific because it comes with some additional definitions that to make it a stronger thing than saying it's the same. And so two congruent shapes are exactly the same. So it's almost like I took one and traced it. So there are two ways that we can show that these pentagons, so they have 5 sides, pentagons, are congruent. So the first one is we can place one pentagon on top of the other. If they match exactly, they will be congruent. We might need to flip or turn the shapes to show that they are congruent if we cannot move the pentagons. So for example, on this piece of paper, I can't, or on my computer screen, I can't move my pentagons. So I might need to use tracing paper or trace one of them and see what happens. That's one way that we can do it. We'll also look at a second way as well. So when one shape is placed on top of the other, the two shapes match exactly. We say that they coincide. One shape is superimposed on the other. So coincide just basically means that they line up. And when something is superimposed on the other, it means that it is on top of the other. So here they have shown using the tracing paper, if I were to trace this one over here, and then I actually have to flip it in order for it to work out. And you might be able to tell by looking at them that they don't look like I could just move it, that if I flip it, it actually does almost line up perfectly. And so if I flip it, then it will line up. So these are congruent pentagons. The other way that we can do this is we can measure and record the lengths of all the sides and all the angle measurements. So here I've gone through, and I know these are not necessarily accurate, but each one of these angles is going to be 108 degrees, and each one of my sides is 2 centimeters. So if we're talking or thinking back to what we learned last lesson, this would be a regular pentagon. And this one here has the same, 108 degrees in each angle and 2 centimeters on each side. So when I look at them, I can see that they are all the same. And so therefore, I know that these are two congruent pentagons. So to break it down a little bit further, I know that AB is equal to BC, which is equal to CD, which is equal to DE, which is equal to EA. So basically all this here means is that all of those sides are the same, and they are the same as all of these sides, because every single one of them is 2 centimeters, so that means all of my angles are the same. So you can see that there are hatch marks to show all the equal sides, and every single one of my angles are also equal. So they've put a little circle in these corners, which is good. It's still a mark that represents that they're the same, but all my angles are the same as well. So we know that these are going to be equal or congruent pentagons. So all sides are equal, all angles are equal, so they are congruent. We can say that pentagon ABCDE is congruent to pentagon FGHJK. So we write this. Now you can see this fancy symbol. So it is an equal sign with kind of a squiggle on the top. Now it does have to have that specific curve to it. So this is your equal sign. And then if I add that to the top, it is going to be the symbol for congruent. So if we are looking, this is kind of a better version than my hand-drawn version I'm going to get rid of. It looks like this. I'm going to just put it here so it's a little bit bigger. So we have that nice equal sign and then this squiggly line at the top. And that symbol means congruent to. So if I were to take this and write it or say it out loud, I would say ABCDE is congruent to FGHJK. So we have a regular octagon over here. And we can use a tracing of an octagon to show that the sides and angles are equal. So one thing that they've done here is they've actually traced it on tracing paper, and then they've put a pin or a pencil in the middle, and they've spun it. And they've shown that as you spin it, it'll actually line up every time. So when we have a regular shape. We can actually do this with any regular shape. If we trace it and then put a pin right in the very middle and spin it, it will line up a whole bunch of times. Every time that corner hits the next corner, these two things will line up. So that's how you know that all the angles are congruent. We have some practice questions here, just determining whether or not these are congruent. Now, the angles or the measurements that may be on here might not be exactly accurate. So depending on what kind of device you have, if you are measuring this on your device, this may not be 3 centimeters. It might be more and it might be less. So you might want to, depending on the question that you're working on, redo your own measurements, or for length or for angles, just to be sure, because it will change depending on what you're looking at. If you print it, it still might not be exact because of just the way that I format some of these things. So you might want to do all your own measurements for these. If you have any questions, please let me know. And other than that, I look forward to seeing your work on your quiz.